Hi, this is Aaliyah Swaby, and you're listening to WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from New Haven, Connecticut, and streaming live at www.newhavenindependent.org.
You're listening to WNHH 103.5 FM. This is the Table Underground, and I'm your host, Tagan Engel. There's a wave of cool new books for kids that feature stories about girls and women portrayed as smart, inventive, strong, and important. These are a far cry from the princess books of years past, and they're having an impact on how girls are seeing themselves and understanding the role of women and girls in history and the world today. I know this because I have watched firsthand how my 10-year-old daughter takes pride in important women in history, many of whom are also Black, brown, and Asian, and many of whom I had never heard about. The importance of seeing girls and women and Black and brown people in books cannot be understated. So who better to have on the show today than my own daughter, Tomi Sela Engel Halfpenny, to share her passions for these new girl power books. Tomi, welcome to the Table Underground.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
So one of my oldest memories of you were like 6 or 8 months old, and you were sitting up, but certainly not reading, not even crawling yet. And you were sitting in the living room, pulling all of the kids' books off the shelf, piled around you, like dozens and dozens of books. And you would just flip through the pages and look at them. So I feel like you have this inborn love of reading and books. Do you feel like that?
Definitely.
Yeah. So you super love reading, and I have to tell you to put down your books so that you can brush your teeth and eat your breakfast and get ready for school. So we certainly have a blessing that you love to read, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and not all kids love to read. Not all kids have that many books around like that, but you certainly do. And recently we have all these new books that are pretty cool. And one in particular, I remember a few years ago, we were in a bookstore. Is that one of our favorite pastimes? And we saw this book called Strong is the New Pretty. And you begged for this book, right? And tell me a little bit. You begged to have this as a gift for Hanukkah or your birthday. I don't remember. Tell me what it was about this book, Strong is the New Pretty, by Kate T. Parker. What is it about this book that you were so excited about?
Well, just like it's all about girls who are like awesome and strong and like showing who they really are, not just like who they pretend to be. And like showing all of their real emotions and what really happens. And it's all about girl power, which, as you know, I love. So, yeah.
Cool. And so this is a book that has photographs of girls, of real girls around the world, and then it has a quote from each one about something that they said about themselves.
Yeah.
So can you tell us one of the first ones in the book that you really like?
So one of my favorites is I think girls everywhere should focus way more on who they are inside and way less on what they look like outside. I found a lot of strength in just not caring. Lakewater hair? Don't care. And then it shows this really awesome picture.
And what's the picture of?
Of the girl with lakewater hair.
So it's a picture of her. She was just swimming and she just came out of the water and her hair's all in her face. So she's saying she doesn't really care about being like messy and like she doesn't feel like she has to look perfect. So what do you like about that?
It makes me think of like when I was just at camp, of like how much we didn't have to focus on our appearances because everyone we knew there was super friendly and nice, and we didn't really care what we looked like.
And so you just went to a sleepover camp that was for 10 days. It was your first time at sleepaway camp.
Yeah.
And it was an all-girl camp. And it was a lot of focus on taking pride in yourself as a girl and in the future as a woman, but not about just being pretty and stuff like that. And so you said they had something there called body talk, or what does that mean?
So body talk was like not like if someone said, "Oh, I really like your shirt." Like that's a compliment, but that would be body talk. So like we're trying to not focus on appearances and more focus on what you were like on the inside.
So you tried not to do body talk. And what have you noticed about, since at camp you were doing no body talk, not talking about appearances, but more about like who people are?
Yeah.
And so what have you noticed in like the week or so that you've been back from camp?
That body talk happens a lot more in all of the time that I've been back, which hasn't been very long. I've been noticing so many different people doing body talk, and like that's not a bad thing. Like,
what do you notice?
They're
like what kind of
compliments,
thing?
but just like around somewhere, just like if we were like going around downtown, just like I would notice somebody saying, "Oh, I like your hair," or "I like your eyes," or "I like your shirt," and I'm just like in my head, I'm just like, "Bing, body talk."
It is one of the first things that everybody says to you, right? "Oh, you're so pretty. You have such nice eyes," or "You have a cool haircut," or something. So it really is, and I think that that's something that happens to girls a lot. I mean, it happens to everybody, but in particular, it's the thing that happens to girls. And that, I think, is a lot of the reason why they made this book called Strong is the New Pretty, which is instead of focusing on girls being pretty, it's about thinking about them being strong and smart and like all these other powerful, right? So what are some of the other pictures here?
Another one is about this other girl, and she is wearing she has lacrosse equipment on, and the quote is, "I can do all of the same things as my brother. I just think I do them better."
What do you like about that?
I think it says like girls can do the same things as boys, but they can do them better.
Yeah, always.
Always.
And what about this one? This is
one
a picture.
Is a really beautiful picture.
Yeah, tell me about the picture.
It has this girl
so she's in a water fountain, and she had her hair in the water, and then she's like flicking it back, so we see the water spraying all over the place.
Yeah.
And then, it's actually from a fire hydrant on the street. So what's the quote here?
My friends say I'm crazy, but I'm just me. And I really like that, because you're just like, no matter what other people think about you, as long as you like yourself, you're fine.
Does that feel hard sometimes to not care about what other people think about you?
Yeah.
Why does that feel hard?
It's like,
you're not sure how to explain it?
It's kind of like the saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt me."
Mm-hmm.
How false that is. Because words are actually like one of the things that hurt you the most. Like, not physically, but like emotionally, or even physically.
Yeah.
Will. Really powerful.
Sometimes even the emotions then hurt you physically, right? It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So, it's interesting. You're reminding me that when, right now is in the summer, but during the school year, you often come home and talk a lot about things that mostly boys, but just that kids say at school about girls, and that it really bothers you. Can you tell me, like, what are some of those things that happen at school?
Well, sometimes during gym, the boys in my class will, if we're doing teams, the boys in my class will say, "Hey, why don't we do boys against girls?" And then I usually always hear some boy in the background whispering, "Yeah." And then boys will win easily.
Mm.
I just get really annoyed at that because usually the girls don't actually get a chance to really be able to play because the boys don't believe that they're strong enough or they're able to do this. So then even if they are really good, they don't actually get a chance to actually show that they are because say we were playing Gaga.
Mhm.
All of the boys try to get them out no matter how good they are because the boys think, or the boys try to get each other out because then if they try and get the people who are harder to get out, which isn't actually true, then they'll have an easier time getting out the girls. But
Mhm.
there is something that's good about that because if they think that you aren't good enough and they get all the other boys out and then they're against you
Mhm.
and you're really good at it, you have a really easy time getting them out and then you win.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
So I know sometimes at school, like, kids have said to you, like, you're not fast enough or strong enough or smart enough or something like that. And you feel like that's really unfair because you feel like they're saying that to you, like, because you're a girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember at your birthday party, you had like a whole talk with a bunch of boys about this. You guys ended
And
up,
girls.
and the girls, right? So the other girls and then the boys also had this whole talk about that. How did that feel to finally get to,
That felt really good.
what happened at that talk?
What happened is so the girls expressed and me, we all expressed like what we were feeling and then the boys would ask questions about that and then we would be able to talk about that and get deeper into that. So then we would be able to try and figure out ways that we could resolve that and stop that from happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you guys all started like yelling at each
Yeah.
other at once because everyone was so
Yeah.
excited and the boys
Yeah.
sort of felt like
Yeah.
you were attacking them or something. So we had like a little thing that we passed around so people could
Yeah.
have like whoever was holding it could talk, and we did it in a circle so
Mhm.
everyone got a turn to talk. And at the end, did you feel like the boys actually heard some of the things that you were
Yeah.
saying that
Yeah,
you and the other girls were
definitely.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did that help a little bit?
Yeah, that definitely did.
Do you think it would be good at school for kids to get to talk about this stuff more? About
Mhm.
like girl power stuff and about also
Yeah.
about like race and skin color
Yeah.
stuff?
That
Yeah.
helped.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. We'll talk some more about that. So there's one more quote in this book, The Strong is a New Pretty Book. Do you want to read this one? What is this? This is this one. So it's a picture of a girl with a ball in her hand on a field.
Yeah.
What does
So
it say?
it says satisfaction is working hard, not giving up, and having heart and will.
Mm. How does that make you feel when you read that?
Happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So why do you love this book?
It's just like as I said before, all about girl power, and I love having girl power around, and it's all about, again, as I said earlier, girls showing who they really are,
Mm-hmm.
not just showing who they pretend to.
Okay, so your first recommendation for your summer reading list for girl power books is Strong is the New Pretty by Kate T. Parker.
All the way.
Okay. And we want to encourage people to support your local and independent bookstores as much as possible when you're finding all these books. So, speaking about independent bookstores, these next two books are pretty cool because they are published by an independent publishing company. They're called Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls #1 and Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls #2. And they are published, the money to publish these books actually came through a Kickstarter campaign. And it's from two women, Francesca Cavallo and Elena Favilli. And they have a company called Timbuktu, which is an independent publishing company. So these books and a lot of the info in these books actually came from the public donating money and ideas. So the structure of these books is that there is a collage portrait of an artistic portrait of a woman in history, or either past history or current history, and a one-page, oh, sorry, Tomi's correcting me. What should I say? Not history?
Her story.
Okay, women in her history. You're really big on saying that.
Yep.
So And then it has a 1-page written piece with really interesting facts and stories about that person. So what do you think of these books? How do they make you feel?
I think they're really cool because they show all of these women and girls in the present
Mm-hmm.
or in history or her story, and what they did. Like,
Let's start with this one here.
yeah.
So this is one of the first ones that you picked. Her name is Anne Makosinski. And why did you pick her as someone you wanted to talk about?
So she is a inventor, and her friend, wasn't able to study when it was dark because her house didn't have electricity. So, her and Anne talked about it, and Anne decided to try and fix it. So
what did she invent?
she invented something that she calls the hollow flashlight. And she calls it that because it was made out of a hollow aluminum tube.
And what's really special about this flashlight?
It's the only flashlight that doesn't have to be run on batteries, solar power, or wind. It's powered by body heat.
That is so cool. So she's also a pretty young person. She was born in 1997, and she's from Canada. So she as a young person, invented the first body heat powered flashlight.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So even if you had a solar power one, you have to have some sunlight, right? So this is really cool. Yeah. So another person that you picked in this book was Miss Nina Simone.
Yes.
Very famous singer and jazz musician. Why did you pick Nina Simone?
She's a really amazing singer, and she's so talented. And she's really amazing. When she was 3,
so tell us without reading. So
when she was 3, Nina, while her mom was at church, Nina climbed up onto the organ bench and learned to play God Be With You Till We Meet Again.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she was 5, when someone offered to
Are you forgetting because you're trying to read the story?
Someone offered to pay for piano lessons.
Okay.
For Nina, and then she wanted to become a classical pianist.
And one of the things that I think you mentioned that was really important is that she was really outspoken about racism and prejudice and how negatively it affected Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And she said this quote here that you read to me earlier, this part. We want to read that to us?
Mm-hmm. The worst thing about that kind of prejudice, she said, is that while you feel hurt and angry and all the rest of it, it feeds your self-doubt. You start thinking, perhaps I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm. And so she wrote some really special songs like Brown Baby and Young, Gifted, and Black, and some other songs that are really important. Yeah. Awesome. And so I'm curious, you are a mixed kid, right? You're like a light-skinned mixed girl. And your dad is Black and I'm white and Jewish. And how is that for you at school, like, or in your life? Like, how do you feel in the world around that?
Well, unless they see me with my dad, they don't really believe that I'm mixed. Mm-hmm. They just think that I'm white and find that annoying that I have to be with someone who is Black for them to believe it. Or if, like, sometimes they don't think that he's my actual dad, because sometimes they say, "Oh, you look so much like your dad," but sometimes they don't think that. It's hard.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So in that way, does it feel really important to you when you have books that they have representation of people of all different skin colors and cultures so that you don't feel like
Yeah.
you just have books
Yeah.
that are just white people in them.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do you think that's important?
Yeah.
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 So not just representations of girls and women, but also people of different races, which is something that's,
Definitely.
yeah, that's something that we really love about a lot of these books that we're sharing, is that more than in the past, there is a lot more racial diversity in the people who are represented in these books. And so I think that that's like definitely a positive step forward too, without question. Super important that people feel seen. And it's actually really why I wanted you to be on the show with me today, because I think that I didn't want to have like a book expert on the show who was like a grown up talking about kid books. I think it's super important that a kid is talking about kid books.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think so too?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have like really special things to say. And I think that that's like an important part of doing work around like equity around race and around gender and around age and all different things, is that people need to be able to speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So there is one more story here in your Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls book. And can you tell us who this story is?
Sonia Sotomayor.
Sonia Sotomayor, and she is one of our Supreme Court justices. And what did you like about this story about her?
At first, she loved to read Nancy Drew, and she wanted to originally be a detective.
Mm-hmm.
But then she saw Perry Mason, and she was diagnosed with diabetes, and she was told, you can't be a detective. So she said, okay, I'll be a lawyer like Perry Mason.
And then later,
she did.
She did, and she became one of the most important lawyers and judges in our country.
Yeah.
And she is a Puerto Rican woman, and so that is really cool too. So that is in Goodnight Rebel Girls 2. And did that inspire you to then go check out what are Nancy Drew books?
Yes.
Yeah, so we had some in the house, which you had not actually touched yet. And then
kind of, but not
kind
really.
of. Okay. Well, I've noticed you reading them a lot recently, so that's pretty cool. All right, so our next book's up. There are 2 books. One is called Women in Science, 50 Fearless Pioneers Who Changed the World. And the other one is Women in Sports, 50 Fearless Athletes Who Played to Win. And they are both written by Rachel Ignatowski. I did not say that very well. She has an interesting last name. So let's check this one out, because, you know, one of the things that I have noticed about you reading all these books is that you suddenly have so much information about people that I don't have at all. I'm like 30 years older than you, more than 30 years older. And you'll be like, did you know that Ada Lovelace did blah, 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 blah? And I'm like, who's that? What did she do? Really? That's true? And you've learned a lot of that in these books. And I just think that's amazing. Is this, when you read these, does this information just stick in your head?
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Also because I've read them like 1,000 times.
So you just keep reading them over and over? Yeah. So this is really important because like in school, you learn history in school, but you often only learn a very limited history.
Yep.
Yeah. Mostly like very few things.
And mostly history, not herstory.
Yes. And mostly history about, or herstory, if it is herstory, or history about white folks, and only about very particular things. So these books have a lot of other info.
Yeah.
So who's the first person in this Women in Science book that you wanted to talk about?
So this one, as you said, is Ada Lovelace.
And what's cool about her?
I think that she's really awesome because she was the first person to ever have the original idea for a computer. And she was the first person she wrote the first code ever.
And then what happened? How come we don't know about her?
Because her work isn't really very famous because she was working with a man. Yeah.
And did he take her ideas?
No.
So I think that that was somebody else.
Yeah.
All right. So we just don't know about her very much because the man who she was working with took all the credit. So these books.
He didn't take the credit, but he was the person who was known for it.
Okay. Well, that's what I mean by taking the credit.
Yeah.
So these books have also like an artistic representation of the person and then one page of information. I like this book also because it has a whole bunch of cool quotes that are all around it, which even if a kid doesn't want to read like the whole long page, they could just read the quotes and the little illustrations around the edge and get a lot of information from that.
Yeah.
So that I think helps this book be interesting for kids of different ages too, because it's like if you're a younger reader, that there's still more to get to. So the next person, who was this? She's a geneticist, and her name
is Nettie Stevens.
And what did you like about her?
So she was the person who figured out about XY chromosomes, and she figured out about them around the same time as another
male scientist, right?
Who thought that the gender also had something to do with the environment, but Nettie figured out that that was not true. And she said, nope, it's right down to the chromosomes. And she was right.
Cool. This is like super important scientific discoveries, and probably very few people have ever heard of her. And another person you chose was Alice Ball.
Yes.
What was important about her?
She's a chemist. She discovered the cure for
leprosy, right?
Leprosy, yeah. And she figured out that if you extracted the acids from
there's like
a special kind of tree, that and mixed them with water, you could inject them, because sometimes without doing that, before she discovered that, sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. And her question was, why doesn't it work all the time? But she wasn't known for it until pretty recently, because a man, her work wasn't very famous, but a man had discovered her work, and he decided, because not many people had heard of it, to take it up as his own. But then people discovered that he wasn't correct.
Right.
And then every 4 years, February 29th is Alice Ball Day.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So they did end up naming it for her finally, eventually, even though he tried to steal it first.
Method, yeah.
So the last thing that we're going to do from one of these books is the Women in Sports book. And this is an interesting story that I think actually takes shape in a lot of different ways. Like the thing that happens in this story happens a lot of times in these books to women in history. So can you tell us who this person is? Her story, sorry.
So this is Sue Sally Hale. And she's a polo player, or was a polo player. At first, she wasn't allowed to go into the USPA and compete there. The USPA is the United States Polo Association, because she was a woman.
So what'd she do?
What she did was she dressed up in drag and disguised herself as a man, who she then named Mr. A. Jones, who competed and then disappeared right after a race. And then as herself, Sue Sally would then go to the after celebrations, and she would overhear the other competitors or other people talking about how well Mr. Jones did.
And so eventually, did she tell them who she was?
When the USPA said, no, we still aren't going to allow you to compete, she said that if they didn't let other women and her compete and play polo in that club, that she would tell the public and everyone else that she had been disguising herself as Mr. A. Jones this entire time and had them fooled. And that pushed it over the line. So then they had to let her and other women
Yeah.
play polo.
That's cool. So how does that make you feel, like learning about that women couldn't even play sports or like do any of these amazing science things in public, that people weren't accepting it?
It makes me feel annoyed, but I'm happy that that's partially over.
Partially over, but you're aware that it's not totally over.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm just going to quickly mention 2 other books. There are actually 3 books. So there's a really cool set of books called Rad American Women A to Z, Rebels, Trailblazers, and Visionaries Who Shaped Our History and Our Future, and also Rad Women Worldwide. Those are by Kate Schatz. So that's another really cool set of books people can check out. And another one we have is called Fight Like a Girl, 50 Feminists Who Changed the World. So those are kind of similar books, and I think it's pretty exciting. I'm sure there's a ton of other ones too, but it's pretty exciting how many books there are out there that are helping hopefully girls and boys, men and women, to get a lot more information about women in history and in the present day.
Yep.
So you are listening to WNHH 103.5 FM. This is the Table Underground, and I'm your host, Tagan Engel, and we are joined by Miss Tomi Selah Engel Halfkenny, talking about girl power books and awesome summer reading. Tomi, are you ready to go on to the next thing?
Yep.
All right. We're going to take a quick break from books and move on to a very cool magazine. So do you remember how we first found out about this? Who told us about this?
One of our friends.
Mama Leah Penniman of Soulfire Farm, who is a amazing, awesome, radical woman in current herstory as well.
Yeah.
Dear friend of ours gave this as a gift to Tomi for her birthday. So tell us a little about New Moon Girls magazine. What's this on the front here?
So, New Moon Girls is on the front of, I think, all of the magazines. There's a little thing that says it's girl created, and that's true. Most of the, if not all of the things in the magazine are girl created or women created. And this one was for November and December of 2017. And first they have the table of contents where they show like all of the things that are in the magazine. And then they have a section called Girl Talk, where they have something that says Meet a Moon Girl, and it has like a small biography of someone who is in the New Moon Girl community.
Mm-hmm. And so you get to learn about girls in the New Moon Girl community, and then are there letters in here as well that people write in, like with questions?
There's Ask a Girl.
And so then who answers them?
Girls. You ask the question, and then you put it up on the website, and other girls will answer it, and sometimes they get put in the magazine.
And do you think that's cool that it's other girls answering it and not grown-ups? That's a pretty cool thing. Mm-hmm. So I really love, like, this one has a lot of really progressive things in it. So, for example, on the cover, there's a young black girl with a shirt that says "I am Black History," and she has her hand raised in a fist, and it talks. There's a story about Flint, Michigan, and girls who are fighting, and just really cool things that girls around the world are doing. So, do you find this magazine inspiring? Mm-hmm. What do you find inspiring about this?
It just has, like, again, it's kind of like Strong is the New Pretty. It has, like, all of the girls being themselves and also, like, talking about issues in the real world and how to solve them step by step.
Yeah, that's a cool thing because it's, like, very relevant to your life, the things that they're talking about. And it takes different perspectives. So it can be like girls with different life experiences that can help. So that magazine is called New Moon Girls. And I think even some of our public libraries in New Haven have that magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And people can also order it online. We have a little message sent in here from your dad. He is listening live and has a question for you. So he wanted to know about how do you feel about the fact that he has two questions for you. So women who didn't stop, even though society wasn't accepting them. What do you think about that, or how do you feel about that?
I feel like that's really awesome because, like, they didn't really care. Like, so what? I'm still going to be doing this. You guys can't stop me from doing what I think is right and what I want to do.
And do you think about that in your life sometimes?
Yeah.
I feel like I
A
hear
lot.
you say that a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I am going to do this, even if kids at school say I'm like too slow or not strong enough, I'm going to like do push-ups and get stronger. I'm going to show them.
Yeah.
So he wrote in with one other question for you, which is, are there women in your life that you know who are inspiring you and who you think of as girl power women?
Well, there's you, of course. And then, like, most of the teachers that I've had are girls and women.
Mm-hmm.
So them, the science teacher
At your school?
our school,
Who's your science teacher?
Miss Davis.
Miss Davis. Why?
Yeah.
She is so awesome. Why does she inspire you?
She has, like, how many kids?
3 kids.
She's 3 kids and is also a science teacher. And she also helps do the science fair. So that's like a whole bunch of amazing things while she's also a parent.
Mm-hmm. And she has 3 little kids.
Yeah.
Do you know that she also went to graduate school while she was teaching full time and got her master's,
Whoa.
finished her master's degree? I know. And she's a Black woman from this area and is just like really cool. I think she inspires me too. So that's awesome. All right. So we're going to go into some chapter books now. So we were talking more about books that are like nonfiction books, and we're going to go into some chapter books. So you have here a Nicholas Flamel book.
Yes.
Can you tell us why do you like these
this-
books and why are they girl power books?
So this series is The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel. It's by Michael Scott. And they aren't really super duper focused on girl power as the other books and magazines are. But it's about I think that they do have some girl power in it because Sophie, one of the main characters, has lots and lots and lots and lots of magic. The story is about magic, and
is she like a really powerful character in the book?
She's extremely powerful. She's learned all of the elements, magic elements to be able to cast spells and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She's more of a sorceress, but also Pernell Flamel, Nicholas Flamel's wife,
Mm-hmm.
is more feared and is more powerful than Nicholas himself.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome.
It's cool. So you have a book where the two of the strongest characters in the book, the most powerful characters, are both women. One
Yeah.
a girl and one a grown-up woman.
Yeah.
So that's cool because it is true. Like a lot of times there's girls in books, but it might be like one girl and all the rest are boys, or they might not be as powerful. So that's a cool thing. So what's the next chapter book?
The next one is The Sisters Grimm.
Yes.
It's by Michael Buckley.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's the 3rd one in the series. It's called The Problem Child, and this one's about Red Riding Hood.
So this is based on the Grimm's fairy tales, the kind of
Yeah.
classic fairy tales. But what's
So,
different about this?
It's the Sisters Grimm, not the Brothers Grimm. So it's the descendants of the brothers, and they're the only sisters so far,
and
in
so the story sort
family.
of happens
So
with them.
yeah, so their parents disappeared, and then they had to go into the orphanage, and they had a really mean caretaker.
But the story is
called
all
Miss
kind
Smirt.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about, like, the two girls are named Sabrina and Daphne, and their grandma is Relda Grimm.
And so you've been reading this whole series of Grimm's books, and are they, like, really exciting the way they're written?
Yeah, they're super duper intriguing, and it's really fun because it's all about, like, how smart and clever Sabrina and Daphne are, and all of that really awesome stuff.
That's cool. It's fun to have stories like that.
Yeah.
So this is another book you picked out. It's called The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. And can you tell me, like, really short, what is the book about?
So the book is about this girl who's named Luna, and she is a...
She's sort of like a fairy or something magical?
No, but she has magical powers.
Okay.
From the moon. And she lives, it's funny, she lives with a dragon and a swamp monster. And then a witch. So it's like...
And as she gets to be a teenager, her magic emerges, I think.
Yeah.
She starts to become magical.
Yeah.
And so the story is
Yeah.
about, like, what happens as she comes into her magic.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another book that has a character that is a brown-skinned girl. And so that's also really important to us that we have books.
Yeah.
And it should be important for everybody, whether you are a black girl, brown girl, mixed girl, white girl. It's really important that we all read stories about people of all different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I want to pull out this other book here, which is also a nonfiction book. It's a biography of somebody who you think is inspiring. Who's this?
Lori Hernandez.
Who's Lori Hernandez?
Lori Hernandez is a gold medal winning Olympic gymnast and Dancing with the Stars champion.
And did you like this book?
Yeah, it was really fun. It's all about, like, all of the challenges that she had to get through and all the things that happened while she was competing and doing all of these things.
Yeah. And what's it called?
It's called I Got This, To Gold and Beyond.
Cool. So that was a fun book. And I know when you first got that, you read it a lot of times.
Yeah.
So this one here is an older story that I think I found, like, in a used bookstore somewhere. And it's called Taiwo and Her Twin. And I was particularly interested in this because Taiwo is a name for a twin in the Yoruba language. And in our family, we have the Yoruba culture and religious practice in our family through your dad and through me. And so I thought, how awesome would it be to have a book about that culture? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what this story is about?
Yeah, so Taiwo and Her Twin is about this girl who's named Taiwo and her twin, Kainde. And they're in their village, and they find out that this school is being built. And Taiwo really wants to go to school. She wants to learn. She's really smart. And then she finds out that only her brothers are allowed to go to the school. And what she does is she convinced her brother, her
He starts
twin,
teaching her, right?
Kainde, to teach her how to write and how to read and spell. And then at the end, after she caught a turkey with her twin, and then it kept on escaping, she had then thought up a plan after it escaped again on how to get it back.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the people in the town were so impressed and her father didn't know that she had learned how to write and how to read.
Yeah.
And she was the only girl in the family, or even the village, who knew how to
And did
write
eventually
and
did he
read.
let her go to school?
So eventually, after she had showed him, they secretly got all of the things, and then on market day, they got all of the things, and then they showed her.
Oh, the uniform and stuff.
Then
so
she
could
was super happy, and then at the end, she gets to go to school with her brother.
Yeah. So this book takes place, like, it was written in the 1960s, and it might even take place earlier than that. So it's not like a contemporary book, but it was when a first school was built in that area. So it was pretty cool. So I want to just mention a couple other books. What's this one?
This one's Ivy and Bean.
And these are from when you were a little bit younger. They're sort of like a starting out chapter book.
Yeah.
And they're about two young girls who are best friends, and they're really different, right?
Yeah. Ivy loves ballet and being fancy and pretty, and she wants to be, well, not pretty, but like she loves being fancy. And she wanted to be a witch when she gets older. And then Bean has short hair. She loves being crazy. She loves sports. She loves being active and
being outside and getting dirty and stuff. And so it's also a series of books about their adventures. They end up being neighbors, and people would think that they're not like likely friends because they're so different, but they actually have like awesome, crazy adventures. And they're like, I think those were some early cool girl power books for you.
Yeah.
So there's a couple other books that we just got that we haven't read yet. One of them is called Jupiter Storm by Marty Dumas, and one is called Nadia Knox and the Eye of Zinnia. And we got these because we were actually looking for more books that had black and brown characters in them, and we found these, and the stories sounded really interesting. So we might have to have you do a little review of these books after you read them, because these are new ones.
Yeah.
So before we go, we can't leave without talking to you about food for a second. So beyond all of these awesome girl power books, you read a lot of cookbooks.
Definitely.
So you are my daughter. Food is like a central part of our lives. This is a really cool book called Kid Chef, the Foodie Kids Cookbook. And it's by Melina Hammer and with a foreword by Bryant Terry, who is an amazing chef who wrote Afro Vegan and a bunch of other cool books. And this is like a cool kid cookbook. Can you tell me a couple of the recipes that you really liked in here?
So one of my favorite recipes is a Dutch baby. And it's kind of like a thick pancake.
It's cooked like in a pan, kind of like a thick, bubbly on the edges, crispy on the edges pancake.
And then
what
this
about
one
this one?
Is a minty avocado melon mix. So it's fried cheese with like a minty dressing. And then there's cantaloupe balls scooped all over it, and avocado all over it.
Yum. And so this is like a Latino fresh white frying cheese, which you've had sometimes. You really like that?
It's really good.
It's super good. Cool. So, Tomi, I am so excited about you coming on and talking about all these books. Yesterday, I want to give a shout out to a group in Waterbury called My Reflection Matters, because it was very timely. Yesterday, I met some folks from that organization up in Waterbury, Connecticut, and they have a program and resource website where they have been putting together books that are for Black and Brown, centered around Black and Brown kids and history and culture. And the whole point is to have books that represent people who are not usually represented in American books. So I want to shout them out. People can check out their website. And if you want to find all the books that we talked about today, you can go to thetableunderground.com. That'll be up later today. And you can follow us on social media and check out our podcast on iTunes and other sites. And we will have photos of Miss Tomi Sela, as well as all of these books and links to them on the website. And Tomi, is there anything else that you want to tell kids about had a, like, what would be fun for summer reading?
Um,
Not
not
really. Yeah. Is there like a first book you think they should start with of all these books?
I think Strong is the New Pretty.
Yeah.
That's like a pretty good book, especially because you want like a book that doesn't have too many words. That's definitely a good book. Has amazing pictures. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And so if you don't have money to buy these books, you should bring the list into your library and see if they can get them for you. We've done that before, and our librarian has often gotten books in. Then we take them out and borrow them, and then other people get to use them too, which is super cool. So Tomi, thank you so much for pulling out all these amazing book recommendations for people and for sharing all of your really wonderful thoughts about them.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Bye, Chica.
Bye, Mom.
This is the Table Underground, and I'm your host, Tagan Engel. You're listening to WNHH 103.5 FM.